Good evening, all. Now we are going to start our second session, copyright and related rights. We have with us Miss Ammu Bridget as our resource person. She did her LLB from Government Law College, Mumbai, and LLM in International Trade Law from National University of Advanced Legal Studies, Kochi, Kerala. She has enrolled at Kerala High Court in 2017. Currently, she is working as Associate Media and Technology Law Practice at Ishwar's House of Corporate and IPR Laws, Chennai. She was also deputed to legal team of Industrial Consultancy and Sponsorship Research, IIT Madras, till 2019. She has done internships in Lexstad Consultancy Private Limited, Mumbai, and Advocate Meenakshi Mehta, Bombay High Court. Welcome, ma'am.
Good evening to one and all present here. Good evening to all participants and organizers. Myself, Ammu Bridget. I work in a law firm at Chennai called Issues House of Corporate and IPR Laws. I'm here today. I'm here to give you a brief of copyright and what is copyright and how we encounter copyright in our daily lives. We'll also discuss about different scenarios and legal positions in copyright law of India, and also about copyright infringement. Okay, so let's start. I'm sure that all of you would have seen this symbol in your books or in any write-ups that you come across in over online, and I'm sure that everyone also know that what the symbol represents. So this symbol simply represents that the work that you're seeing or work that you're reading is copyrighted, and and this is not a symbol that you'll have to use mandatorily for every work that that you write. But then this is just a representation, and it is not a mandatory representation. Moving on, what is copyright? So, in your previous section, Ms. Grace Thomas has explained what is IPR and what is patent in detail. So, like patent being an intellectual property, copyright is also an intellectual property right that you get. By the literal meaning of copyright, it says right to copy, right? So, do you have the right to copy a work that you see? So that brings you to the meaning of copyright. So copyright is an exclusive right given to a original work. So this original work can be a literary work or a music that you create or an artistic work that you create or a dramatic work or even your cinematographic film, that is your movies. So that means the first condition is that it should be an original work. And what does copyright gives you? It gives you a exclusive right to 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 make others not to copy your work. As in, if you have a copyright over the work, that means others cannot copy your work. So when does copyright comes into existence? Copyright comes into existence when you put your idea into a material substance, which means you have an idea of a story and you have been thinking over it and you have developed the story in your mind. But just because you have that story in your mind does not give you a copyright over that story. The copyright will only be bestowed on you when you put that story on a paper. That is when you write your story on a paper or you type it out on your laptop, your story. So your idea has turned into a material substance or a material form. So that is when, so right when you start your story and right at the moment when you finish your story, you have the copyright to that work. So unlike patents, it is not mandatory for you to register your work, your copyright. It is not mandatory, it is bestowed on you automatically. As I said earlier, when you write your story and when you finish your story, at that moment you automatically have your right, or you automatically have the copyright over the work. The only benefit that you get by registering your copyright in the copyright office in any country, for a matter of fact, in any country, the only benefit that you get by registering your copyright is that if there is a legal claim in future, if someone comes in future and tells you that this this is not, this is my work and not your work, then that is when you can claim, saying that I have registered the copyright in this date, you only wrote the story after. So I wrote a story and I registered today, and there is someone else coming tomorrow and claiming that he has registered it. But then with the proof, that this registration proof that I have, I can claim the ownership over that work. That is the only benefit that you get when you register. You can all, I'm not saying that you cannot register, you can always go ahead, register your work in copyright office. But you should also keep in mind that at the moment that you have finished writing your story or completed your musical work, you already have your copyright. And the if you have the proof that you have written it or you have composed this, then that is well and good. So that is copyright. The copyright is an exclusive right bestowed on you, and that makes other person come to you to take license over your work. Other person cannot just like that take away your work and copy and use it or make money out of it. The other person should approach you and take a license of it, or take an assignment or buy it out from you to um, to use it. So that is what copyright is. The main thing is that it should be original. It should not be copied. It should not be in existence. It should be an original work. Moving on, as I said, copyright is a right and it is a bundle of right. So you have written a story and you have that book with you. So what all right you have? You have two kinds of right. One is economic right and the other one is moral right, which means that economic right, as the name suggests, it is something that you can make money out of it. So I have written a story. I will, if if I approach a publisher, I give the publishing right to that publisher. That means he will publish the book and he will pay royalty to me. So that is economic right. You are getting money out of it. And same as that, the publisher can make copies of your book. He can sell, or I as a writer can sell the book. I can rent out the copies of the book, or if it is a music, I can rent out the CDs of the music. If it is if it is an artistic work or a painting that you have made, then you can exhibit it to public and make money out of it. Or if it is sound recording or a cinema that you have created or a music that you have created, you can perform it in front of public, like the concerts that you see. You can perform it in public and then make money out of it. That is, the making money or commercialization of right is the economic right. The other right is moral right. Moral right, which means moral right is something that you cannot give it to other person. The moral right is something that you can keep it to yourself. So I have written a story. That means I as an author get recognized. That recognition right, saying that I am the writer to this book. That recognition you get as an author to the book. So I'm just taking the example of a book so that it will be easy. But you can also think out a scenario when you create a music or when you create a cinema. When we go to further slides, you will understand that. But moral right is something that you as an author gets a recognition. Also, you as a person also has the right to stop someone from destroying your work or defaming your work. So that is something that as an author you have. It does not give you any money out of it, but then that is some recognition right that you get, and that is moral. So you cannot assign this, you cannot give away this right to someone else. It is kept with you with you for the life of the copyright. So as you can see in the slide, it is, as I said, it is a bundle of right. So as I said, it's a bundle of right, which means if you see the book, if you can see the picture of a book, you can see the picture of a mask which depicts dramatic work. The other side is the right hand side top one. If you see, it is a sound recording, and below you can see the music symbol. And then you have your cinematographic picture and also your drawing. So if you see this picture, these are the subject matter of a copyright. For these works, you get copyright. You get copyright, and these works are copyrightable. So to explain that, the subject matter of copyright can be a literary work. Literary work is book, a poem, or a book, or any article that you have written, or any research paper that you have written. That is literary work. Dramatic work are your dramas, your choreographed dances, or any mimic or any dramatic work that you have created. Musical work, you should be very careful in differentiating musical work and song. Musical work is just that graphical notation that a musician make. You can see, as a music composer or a music director of a film, he creates that graphic notation, and that is again recorded with the lyrics to create a sound recording. So musical work under Copyright Act is just that graphic notation. As you can see in this picture, it is just that graphic notation. If you put together, you get a music. So that musical work is just that graphical notation. And then you have sound recording. Any sound created in any medium, if any sound created which is recorded in any medium, is called sound recording. For example, if you see the movie, in a movie, you can see what you can see. There are songs. That song as separate is a sound recording. That means sound, that music plus the lyrics plus it is recorded in a medium. So that means it's a sound recording. And then comes the artistic work. Artistic work is when you have the drawing, you draw, you paint, or any sculpture that you create. That is the artistic work. Moving on, finally, you have a cinematographic film. So cinematographic film, which is simply your movies, means movie is one of cinematographic film. Your advertisement can also be a cinematographic film, or a multimedia video that you have created can also be called as a cinematographic film. So it is not just the movies that you see in theater, it is called a cinematographic film, but then something that you have photographed and you have recorded through with the music and with the action, that is called a cinematographic film. So these six are the subject matter of copyright. So if you go to Copyright Act, you can see that these works are copyrightable, and these works separately have their term of copyright, how long they are under copyright, and also they have their authors. We'll come to that later, but then just to give you a brief idea, copyright subject matter is confined to this. Moving on, as I said earlier just now, each copyright work has its own author and the term. As in, the term means how long it is copyrightable and when will it come in the public domain. So if you take literary and dramatic work, the author of the work or the author of the work is the author of the work. That means the writer, whoever writes the work, and that is copyrighted, or it comes under the purview of copyright for the lifetime of the author plus 60 years. So it is now, if I have written a book, it is for my lifetime plus 60 years, it is under copyright. So only after my lifetime plus 60 years, it goes to public domain and anyone can use it. Till then, it is under copyright. Coming to artistic work other than the photograph, artistic work can be a painting. Whoever have painted the painting, is the author, and it is the same. It is for the lifetime of the artist plus 60 years. Moving on to photographs. Photograph, the author is not the owner of the camera, but it is someone who has taken the photograph. So it is someone who has taken the photograph who is the author, and it is for the lifetime of that photographer plus 60 years. Similarly, for musical work, it is the composer of the music. As I said, whoever creates that graphical notation of the musical work, he is the composer, he or she is the composer, and the musical work copyright is for lifetime of the composer plus 60 years. So if you see in India, it is for all these four work, it is 60 years, lifetime plus 60 years. So that's common for all of these four works. Coming to cinematographic film is not made by one person. It is combined effort of more than one person. So the author of the cinematographic film is the producer, and it is for 60 years from the year of publishing. So if a movie is released today, that means today is the date of publishing. So it is from today to 60 years, it is copyrighted, and the copyright belongs to the producer. Same for sound recording, which means the producer of the sound recording. So there will be a lyricist, there will be a musician, but someone who would have taken the effort to record this sound is the producer of the sound recording, and the term is 60 years plus the year of publishing. Similarly, moving forward, any literary work, dramatic work, or artistic work which is computer generated, the person who causes the work to be created is the author. So if you are working in a company, and that company has made you create something, or a software, or any literary or a dramatic work, that would mean it is the employer, as in your employer, or whoever has given you that work is the author. It is not you, because you have created that work in your course of employment. So that is why your employer is the author of that work. So that was about the term, the author, and what copyrightable work is. Okay, so having said that, this I am sure some of you would have seen this photo. If someone is familiar with this photo, you can unmute yourself and tell me what is it, or where have you seen it? Anyone?
Yeah, yes, ma'am, seen it related to IPR only. That this
Yeah.
photograph belongs to the person who has taken the pic, or is it for the animal?
Right, exactly. You are right. So there is a story behind it. So this is something that has created an issue as with Mason. This is something which helps you to understand ownership of the copyright. So can this photo help? Can this monkey selfie, as we call it, teach us something about copyright law? Yes, it teaches a lot. So who owns this selfie? So whoever have unmuted herself and told she was right, as in who owns this selfie, whether it is this monkey or the photographer whoever camera it was. There was a fight between these two. So it is not that monkey came personally and fought. It was on behalf of monkey. PETA, which is People Ethical Treatment of Animals, came and fought on behalf of monkey. The story behind this is that a British photographer called David Slater, he in the year of 2011 went to a wildlife sanctuary in Indonesia. His aim was to take close shots of monkey, or any very particular, peculiar, special shots of monkey. Okay, so he spent days there in this sanctuary, or in this wildlife sanctuary, but he was not very satisfied with the photos that he got. So one day, what he did was he followed this troop of monkey. He was trying to take the photograph, but then he was not satisfied. So he changed his camera settings and placed his tripod in one particular place. Suddenly, a troop of monkeys got excited by seeing this camera, and this monkey, this particular monkey that you see in the picture, came near camera. He was excited to see the camera, and he started clicking. So there was a bunch of photographs that this monkey clicked. But then this particular photo that you see is very peculiar, right? For some it would be very funny looking, but for me it is very scary looking. So it is, but then the reality is that this photo was clicked by this monkey. So it was his monkey selfie, and obviously the photographer got excited. He took the copy of this photo and had sent it to few few publishers, his agents and all, and it got published in the magazine called Daily Mail. After that, what happened is in 2014, um, this particular photo was uploaded by Wikipedia in their website, the encyclopedia, Wikipedia in their website, saying that this is a picture in public domain, and photographer does not have any right. It is the monkey who has the right, because it was taken by monkey, and it means they didn't say that the monkey has the right, but then they said that public, it is something that is in the public domain, because monkey is not a legal person. David Slater fought against Wikipedia, but then he did not succeed. And if you go to Wikipedia, this photo is still there. And in 2015, this PETA, which is People for Ethical Treatment of Animals, sued David Slater and said that in California court to assert the copyright ownership over monkey rather than the photographer. So they said that the monkey is the one who has clicked the photo, and monkey should get the right over the photo. This suit was dismissed by the court, saying that monkey is not a legal person. But PETA again went for appeal. But then before the decision of appeal, what happened was, this David Slater and PETA, they went for an out of court settlement, and this issue was settled. Issue was settled in the sense, it was agreed, but then the terms of settlements is kept confidential, which is not there in public domain. But then it is heard that it is said that it's 25% of whatever royalty that this photographer David Slater gets out of this photograph should go to the wildlife sanctuary where this monkey lives right now, that is in Indonesia. And interestingly, there is also something that I missed to tell you. This PETA has named this monkey Naruto. So that is what happened. So court also held that monkey is not a legal person, so monkey cannot hold the ownership of copyright. But keeping all this aside, what do you think, or who do you think is the original owner of the copyright? Any answers?
What the court said was correct to an extent. I think so.
Okay, why do you say that?
Because we don't expect the monkey clicking a selfie was it did itself.
Yeah. Okay, so
the person he was actually waiting for that, to get that kind of a photograph. Maybe.
Yeah. Right. So you are right. So it is logically and ethically it should go to photographer, because it was he who has traveled from UK to Indonesia to click the shot of monkey, and it was his aim, and it was him who has taken all the efforts, and to be very particular, the camera settings, the lens, the all was done by photographer. It was just that touch by the monkey on the button of the camera that resulted in the photograph, but monkey was unaware. Monkey is always unaware of what he has done. Till now he would not be aware of what he has done, right? So logically and ethically speaking, it should be the photographer. Yeah, but however, the suit has come, and then he's actually entitled to pay 25% to the monkey's sanctuary. Yeah, that was like very interesting. So this I have told you this scenario just to make you understand how important it is to is to actually determine whose ownership the work is. It may not be monkey every time, it will be between the persons for the fight of ownership. So it is very important to see, who owns the work, and also the term, as in whether the work is within the public domain or within the copyrightable term. So that is how the ownership and term is determined. Okay, so moving on, with regard to software, are softwares copyrightable? Any idea?
Yes.
Okay, so what in software is copyrightable?
Maybe the code or coding part or something.
Yeah, right. So in Copyright Act, the Indian Copyright Act, what it says is, if you see, I put that in the slide, the definition of computer program. So computer program is a set of instructions expressed in words, codes, and schemes, or in any other form, including a machine-readable medium, capable of causing a computer to perform a particular task or achieve a particular result. So this definition, as you would understand, it is talking about a software. So the software has words, codes, and schemes, and it is actually it is in a readable medium, in a machine readable medium. And when you work on a software, it is for a particular purpose, right? An app that you work, or an app and mobile application software. And if you are using that app has a particular task which gives you a particular result. So if you are using WhatsApp is for sending messages, and when you give instructions, that particular task will be performed. So under copyright law of India, the software is copyrightable, but it is not copyrightable at once, as in one software as such is not copyrightable, but different parts of a software can be copyrightable. What in a software is copyrightable are,
one is source code and object code as a literary work, and then you have your graphic user interface, which means the look and feel of your software. So if you see an Android phone and a Apple phone, it has difference, right? As in the way you see an Android phone and the way you see an Apple phone is different. The icons are different, the writing is different, the font is different. So that is what you call it as a graphic user interface. So this graphic user interface can be protected as an artistic work. And then you have a flow diagram which is used for this software to read your particular task and to perform that particular task, the flow diagram. So software engineers can explain it better, but this flow diagrams can also be it can be an artistic work, and also it can be a literary work. So there are three components which you can protect in a software, that is source code and object code, graphic user interface, and flow diagrams. So to register a software, what all you need and what all you should keep point of. One thing is, as I said, for copyright, it should always be an original work. So the software should also be an original work. It should not be copied from someone else's software. And the second thing is, it should not contain an open source software. What is open source software? Something which is free, which is available to everyone out there. So your software cannot contain an open source software. It should be something that you have created. It should not contain this open source software, and it should also be in a digital medium, a machine readable format, for you to get a registration of copyright. Because as I said, an idea cannot be copyrighted. It should be in material form, which in digital medium, which you should submit for registration. So that was all about copyrightability of software. Okay, moving on, work of architecture. Are work of architecture copyrightable? As in, buildings and work of architecture comes under artistic work. And do you think that it is copyrightable?
It should be, ma'am.
Okay, so the buildings you see out there in the public, you're saying that it's copyrightable, right?
Right, the design and all that.
Yeah, so when you go in front of a famous monument or a building, if you take photograph of that, are you infringing someone's copyright? Are you violating someone's copyright?
So taking a photo might not infringe someone's copyright, I suppose. But copying that or producing the same thing somewhere else or trying to bring that out somewhere else might be. I think
Yeah.
so.
Okay, so you're partially right, as in the copying the design, a particular design that someone has created may violate others' copyright. But then there is also something called freedom of panorama in India, which some countries does not offer, but in India it does offer. So before moving on to explain what is freedom of panorama, I'm sure you all would have seen the picture of Eiffel Tower, right? So during the day, if you click a photo of Eiffel Tower during the day, it is not infringing someone's copyright or whoever is holding the ownership of Eiffel Tower. But if you go in front of Eiffel Tower and click picture during the night, you are infringing someone's copyright. So what is the difference between this day and night? Any idea on this?
At night, maybe we see only the lights, some light arrangement sort of thing. So that anyone can do with. But in the morning or during the daytime, we see the Eiffel Tower in the whole. We cannot bring that out anywhere else. Maybe because of that.
So we were talking about the work of architecture and this right, the freedom of panorama. So Eiffel Tower, as you said, as someone had pointed out, it is with the lights. So Eiffel Tower, the design was created or it was bought from someone from in the year 1923, and then after that 60 years has passed, as in it and plus 60 years of 60 years plus the lifetime of the artist has passed. So Eiffel Tower during the day, it is within the copyright. But when you speak about Eiffel Tower at the night, lights in Eiffel Tower was installed way later. That means lights were installed, I think it was in 1985. It was installed, and then when we install lights in Eiffel Tower, it has created a new design. It is a new artistic creation. So that means it creates a new copyright. So Eiffel Tower in night has created a new copyright, and it is well within the copyright, because the artist has not passed away and it is not it is well within the copyrightable term. So that is why when you take a picture in front of Eiffel Tower with the lights in night, it is infringing Eiffel Tower's authorities' copyright. But then, for a matter of fact, no one has complained, or the society which takes care of Eiffel Tower has not sued anyone. You will still see people taking photographs in Eiffel Tower during the night, but then no one has sued. The only problem is you take a photograph and then you commercialize it and make money out of it, then they may come and sue. As in it is very difficult to keep track of it. But this is a scenario where you can understand how important it is to know whether a work is within the copyrightable term or it is in the public domain. So that means if you see Eiffel Tower is a monument. So in India, if you go to India Gate and take a picture, is it violating your copyright? So in France, if you see taking a picture in front of Eiffel Tower is violating the copyright. But then in India, if you go to India Gate and take a picture, is it violating the freedom, or if it is violating the copyright? That is a question. So the answer to this question is, in India you get a freedom of panorama. That means you have the right, or there is an exception given to the copyrighted work in public. So in public space, any monument or any building that you see, if you take a picture of it, it does not violate the copyright because there is freedom of panorama. So in India, if you go in front of any monument and take a picture, it does not violate. But then the French law is different. Even the term of copyright in French law is 70, it is not 60. So French copyright law is different, and India it is different. So in India, you get the freedom of panorama. So that's about work of architecture. So in India, freedom of panorama is an exemption to copyright infringement. Moving to cinematographic film. As I said earlier, you would have seen the table earlier. I explained it to you. Who is the author of a cinematographic film? It's a producer. But who's the owner of the producer is the author and owner of the cinematographic film. Why is that? Because if you actually imagine the creation of a cinema, it is actually the director of the film who takes all the effort to direct the film and to put it together and to release it, right? As in the director it is director's baby. But then why is producer the owner or author of cinematographic film? Any answers? Any idea on this?
Because he spends money making that film or bringing that idea into in the form of a film or something.
Yeah, so money is playing a major part in here because the major effort is put by the director, but money and making a team come together is done by producer. As in, he is the one who produces it. That means the literal meaning is that he is the one who is spending the money. So that is why the owner of the cinematographic film is a producer and not the director. And also, if you see, cinematographic film is a combination of copyrightable work, right? How is that? If you imagine a film, imagine that you're watching a film right now. What all you see, what all in a film is copyrightable. So, film as a whole is copyrightable. Cinematographic film as a whole is copyrightable as one copyrighted work. But within the film, you see lot of copyrighted work or copyrightable work, which is obvious, right? Because all through these slides, I was explaining the literary work, the musical work, the artistic work, the photograph, the recording of sound recordings, right? So if you actually imagine a film, you get to see all these copyrightable work in a film, right? So that is what this picture depicts. It has all these elements. It has music, it has drama, it has the photographs, it has the writing, the script writing. So all this put together, it is a cinematographic film. So to explain further on this, the creation or the production of cinematographic film starts with the director or the producer. Either producer approaches the director or director approaches the producer. So it is almost in all cases it's director who would be the script writer. He or she approaches the producer with the story, with the script. The script is the idea of the story which he has put on paper. So that is script, right? So script of the film is what? Script of the film is the literary work. So he approaches the producer with the script, which brings us to literary work. And then after that, what does producer do? Producer selects the actors, or producer along with the director selects the actors. Actors, during the production, they perform in the film, which creates performers' right, which is one of the related rights to copyright, which I'll explain it later in our future slides. But with actors performing in the film, you get performers' right. And then producer, and then what happens? It is not enough with the actors. There should be someone who is supporting, as in for the creation of cinematographic film, you need a cinematographer who takes the photographic work or who shoots the film. So that creates photographic work. And art director, if you see the history, for example, the historical movies, Bahubali or Jodha Akbar, if you see those films, there is sets, right? The sets, the buildings which is created. So that is something that is done by the art director, and it is then work of architecture which comes under artistic work. Then comes the choreographers. There can be dance choreographers. There can also be stunt directors. The stunt action directors who creates the actions, and also dance choreographer who creates dance sequences. So that is dramatic work. So if you see photographic work, artistic work, and dramatic work, all put together, all these put together, you create film. And major part is played by the music in the film, which the music is created by the lyricist. Again, the lyrics becomes the literary work, and music and the musical work, the graphical notation, it's created by the music director. And then lyrics plus musical work put together, you get a song which is a sound recording, and the performance of this song is done by a singer. So you have lyricist, you have music director, and singer. Singer's performance is a performance, right? That is different. But you again have literary work and musical work coming here. So that is how a producer creates cinematographic film. After putting all these together, what do you get? You get a movie. You get a cinematographic film. So when I say cinematographic film, it is not only the movies that you see theater, the films that you see in theaters. It can also be your advertisements that you see in your TV. That is also coming under the definition of cinematographic film. So for example, now we are talking about films here. So after putting all these work together, what you get? You get a film, and then it gets censored by the censor board, which does not come under copyright, but then it is another entity. It is a separate authority who censors your film, and it goes into theatrical exhibition. That's what we know, right? So what all can a producer do once he creates the film? So you will have to keep in mind that all these are done, or whatever a producer does after creating a film, the right he gets to do all these things is because he is the copyright owner. So what all can a producer do? A producer can make a copy of the film, right? So he can make DVDs or in pen drive, or he can make copies in any medium that he likes, right? Or he can store it in some medium, or he can even sell the entire movie, or he can even rent the entire film to someone else. So how does he do that? He do that by theatrical exhibition, wherein you go to cinema halls and watch your film, or he also does that by non-theatrical exhibition, which means it is not through your theatrical cinema halls. It is done by two mediums, which is satellite and digital. Okay, so I want you to imagine, as in when you see in theater, it is theatrical exhibition. What would be non-theatrical exhibition? That is satellite and digital. So satellite is when you have your satellite, your TV channels through your satellite or dish antennas that you see. Basically your cable TV. It is satellite rights. Whichever it transmitted through the satellites, it's called satellite rights. The other thing is digital rights, which is more popular nowadays, especially during this pandemic. We were all we all were dependent on these rights, right? Which is your Netflix, your Hotstar, or your Prime. So these are digital rights. So basically what happens is, before even releasing your film in theater, Netflix, Amazon, or Prime approaches the producer to buy their digital rights in the film. So, and then they buy the digital rights, and once the film is released in theater after a holdback period, say 60 days, it gets released in these mediums. It can be exclusive or non-exclusive, meaning you can see one film in both Prime and Netflix. The same film, you can see same film in two platforms. That is non-exclusive arrangement. But then if you only get to see one film in Netflix alone, that means that is an exclusive assignment of digital rights to Netflix. So that's how the business works. So I'm telling you all this to understand how the producer as a copyright owner makes the economic rights he has to make money or commercialize his copyrighted work. So this same thing happens for any other copyrightable works also. Moving on, what else does a producer have? You can see in the slide two pictures. One is of Bahubali 2 poster and the other one is Bahubali 1 poster. Okay, so what is this right? Can anyone unmute yourself and say, what right can you relate to this? Bahubali 1 and Bahubali 2. So the producer created Bahubali 1 and then he then produced Bahubali 2. That means it is prequel and sequel. So here, for example, in Bahubali, it is the same producer and the director who has created. But then if you have created a movie and there is some other producer coming to you and saying that I would like to produce a sequel of your movie, then the first producer, the producer of the first movie has to sell the sequel rights to the second producer. So that is how sequel prequel rights come in. The other right is remake right, which you will be able to understand from the posters given here. Right, Arjun Reddy was a popular film, and then comes Kabir Singh. So Arjun Reddy and Kabir Singh, if you see, I think the producers are the same. But then if it is a different producer, then the producer of Arjun Reddy should have given the consent and a license to the producer of Kabir Singh to produce the film. So that's how it is. That is remake rights. Then you have character rights. As you know, there is Lion King and there is Spider-Man. All these characters are created by that producer, right? So anyone who wants to use this character rights should get license from the producers of this character rights. So these are the ways in which the producer means other than the theatrical exhibition, these are the ways in which the producer commercializes the film. So these are called the ancillary rights. Whatever we have discussed now. Apart from that, there is also merchandising rights, which is this. You see mobile covers, you see badges, you see T-shirts of various movies, right? So all these are merchandising rights. So all the vendors or all the manufacturers of this merchandise take the consent or get the license from the producer to create or to manufacture this T-shirts, this badges and mobile covers, and they sell it. So the consideration that the producer get would be a percentage of sales, as in that up of the total sales of this mobile cover, the producer gets a percentage. So that's how the business of cinema works. Before that, there is also one more ancillary right which will be interesting, which is airborne, seaborne and surface transport rights and railborne rights. Airborne, so basically it is if you when you travel in flight, you get to see a movie in the screens in front of you, right? It is not for free. These airlines would have got license from the producers to exhibit that films in the flights during your travel. The same goes for ships and also for surface transport, but basically it is mainly for airborne and seaborne. So that was all about the ancillary rights that a producer in cinematographic film gets. Next, moving on to copyrights in song. I have explained all throughout my presentation how songs is a combination of copyright, same as cinematographic film. Here, if you see, it is song, which is a combination of lyrics plus musical work plus sound recording. So all these three put together, you get song. But that also means that all these three, the lyricist, musical work and sound recording, has separate rights. which to put together would be put together by a producer. So for example, the Sony Music is a music producer, right? So they take the effort to put together or to make a team of these three and put together, and they are the sound recorders. They do the sound recording and they become the producer. So that's how a song is created. So song, you can see it is not only the song in cinematographic film, it can be any song. It can be your album songs or your any local musicians or any singer or any so basically what I mean is it's not only within your cinematographic films you get to see songs, you have other songs also which is also copyrightable. Okay, so having said these, all these copyrighted works lies with the owner or the author, right? See, the author have the right, author can assign or license this copyright to someone else. Okay, so for example, the music composer composes a piece, a musical work for the purpose of a cinematographic film. So what he does is he assigns or he gives the right over the musical work to the producer through a written agreement. So when the movie starts, they enter into an agreement saying that you will create a music for this film and I will pay you this much amount. So there should be a written agreement for this, and they pay, and this copyright over the musical work is assigned to the producer. So this assignment and licenses is possible under Copyright Act, and that's how it is. So the only thing is that the agreement should be in writing. So it can also be for existing work or future work. So for example, if a producer has decided to produce a film, that means in the beginning itself, he'll approach the music director and ask him to write. So the work is not created, it's a future work. So as and when the work is created, that time it gets assigned to the producer. The only thing is that this all should be in writing. So the entire right over the musical work goes to producer. The same thing can happen for a book also. A book written by the writer, the author he can assign the entire copyright to the publishing house or any other person, so that he can take it forward and reproduce. The only thing is that the publishing house, the other person should pay the author, the original author, something, the consideration. So that comes in the way of royalty, a percentage of from the sales of the book. So that's how it is. The only thing is that when we assign a copyrightable work, there is something called right to receive royalty that cannot be assigned. For example, in the literary work or a musical work in cinematographic film. So for example, A.R. Rahman is composing a film for a movie, and he has assigned the right over the musical work to the producer. Okay, so the producer gets the right of the musical work, the entire right, but the only right that A.R. Rahman can keep, or the right to receive royalty, will remain with A.R. Rahman. So whatever royalty he is ought to get, or whatever sales that film has, an equal share of royalty should go to A.R. Rahman. Or the exploitation of musical work, out of which a producer gets something, an equal share of royalty should go to A.R. Rahman. So basically what I mean is the right of royalty is inherent. It cannot be assigned to someone. So for any literary work or musical work that you see in cinematographic films, if that work is exploited through any other mode other than cinema halls, so if you see in cinema halls, then the royalty is not accrued. But for any other medium, there is a song in a film is played in a concert. So the revenue that the producer or the copyright owner gets out of that concert should go an equal share should go to A.R. Rahman or the musical composer. Okay, so that is how it is. The right to receive royalty cannot be assigned. It remains with the music composer or the lyricist or the script writer, it cannot be given to someone else. It can only be given to two person, that is your legal representative as well as copyright society. So I'll come to what is copyright society in our next slide. But then if you imagine, A.R. Rahman has composed a lot of music, right? So how does he keep the track of this? How does he keep the track of who is playing his movie, his song where? It cannot be done, right? It is impossible to keep the track, right? Or who is playing his movie where and who is making what money. No one can trace it. It is actually impossible, right? So that is where copyright societies comes into our help. Copyright societies are they are actually coming under Copyright Act. Copyright societies are registered societies wherein all these authors, musicians, lyricists becomes members, and they give their right, and the function of copyright society is to keep the track, to manage their work and to collect royalty. They collect these copyright societies collect the royalty, and then they pay an equal share to all these authors. So A.R. Rahman by himself will not keep a track of it. It is done by copyright society with whom he is a member of. One of the famous copyright society is Indian Performing Rights Organization, which is IPRS. They have their rules of how to manage royalty, and how the royalty that they receive is divided between the authors. So all these are done by copyright societies. They issue licenses. For example, a restaurant plays music, right? So restaurant just like that cannot play music. They'll have to take the license from Copyright Society, be it IPRS or Phonographic Performance Limited India. They will have to take license for the particular song or particular bunch of music that they are playing from these Copyright Society, and then only they can play. There are several suits which is filed against restaurants playing music illegally. So if you are actually renting out a place for a party in a famous hotel or any 5-star hotel, if you see, you will get a sheet from them, which is the licensing agreement from IPRS or any copyright society, saying that they are liable to pay royalty. So that's how it has happened. So next time when you go to a restaurant and hear a music, it is actually IPRS or any copyright society can come and claim against that restaurant for playing their music and earning money out of it. So that's how copyright societies work. Moving on to related rights. Copyright is different. Related rights is different. Performer's right is not copyright. It is a special right given to performers. Performers is who is performing something live in a studio, or be it recorded or live in a studio. That is, for example, the movie that you see, the actors have performers right. And then you have broadcast reproduction right, which is through that. We'll come to that later. Moving on to performer. Who is a performer? Under Copyright Act, performer can be an actor, a singer, a dancer, and also a person delivering speech. So right now, when I am taking this session, I am delivering a speech or I am performing. So for this particular session, I have the performer's right. And also interestingly, a snake charmer is also a performer in Copyright Act. What does performer get? Performer gets an exclusive and special right of a person who is engaged or appear in performer, and he gets an exclusive right to make a sound recording or a video recording or a visual recording of his performance, and also to reproduce such performance in any medium or to communicate it to public, and also to broadcast through TV or internet his performance. So these are the rights that a performer gets. So for example, a dancer, if he has choreographed something and he is dancing, or he or she is dancing, then he can make a video out of it, a visual video recording out of it. He can give it to he can actually play it over internet or TV, or can even give it to some other person for commercializing it and make money out of it. Or he can even again recreate it in any other platform, for example a stage show. So he can communicate it again to public in a stage show. And the performer's right exists for 50 years from the year of publication. What is a broadcast? Broadcast is communication to public through wireless diffusion. It can be radio and TV. So for the Copyright Act only talks about TV broadcasting and radio broadcasting. Internet broadcasting is something that is very new, as in now it is all internet broadcasting. So the Amazon Music that you get, or the Spotify or Ghana, you get to hear or listen to songs, right? So that is internet broadcasting. Radio is something that you hear over radio, and TV is something that you see over TV. So the thing is, while a broadcasting company, for example a radio company, broadcast a copyrighted a music or a song, then he will have to pay royalty to the producer, which is producer of that sound recording, as well as to the music composer, as well as the lyricist. So that's how it is. So very recent, December 31st, there was an order by Intellectual Property Appellate Board, which is IPAB, on determining the rate of royalty. How much rate has to be paid to whom and when. So for example, it was for radio broadcasting. So radio broadcasting, it is the royalty rate was decided on needle per hour. That means it is on the time that you air the music. So if it is at peak time, the royalty will be peak. If it is not a peak time, the royalty will be less. So that's how they decided the royalty. And now on from the order was effective from September 2020. It came late, but it is effective from September 2020, and all the radio broadcasting companies has to follow that royalty rate. So that's how broadcasting works. Same for broadcasting also. They can even, when they have broadcasting right, they can rebroadcast the broadcast, and it can be made heard to the public for money, or reproduce the visual recording or sound recording. It can even sell or hire to public. That is all about copyright, and what all can be copyrighted, how it is copyrighted, and the ownership and the term. But now we move on to the violation of copyright. If I am writing a book, and when can I say that the copyright is violated? It is basically the infringement of copyright. When can I say that some person has infringed my copyright? So when is copyright work infringed? One is when, without my authority, someone else is making copies of my work and is selling it or hiring it. For example, book. I have written a book, I would have given it to a publisher for publishing, but then you get to see photocopies of that same book with your street vendors, right? So that is copyright publishing, because that is done without my authority. Or for example, the movie that you create, the pirated version will be available in other platforms, which is without my authority. So that is copyright violation. For example, the next one is when I create a music, or when I create a lyrics, and when it is combined to become a song, and someone else is performing the same in public without my authority or without my consent, then that is copyright violation. The other thing, the same thing, if the infringed copy of your book or any article or any literary work or any artistic work that you have created is distributed for the purpose of trade and personal gains. That is, when a person has taken the copy of your copyrighted work and he has sold it to someone else or he's making money out of it, then that is copyright infringement. When he has not compensated you, but he is alone making money out of it, then that is copyright infringement. Same goes for public exhibition of infringed copies. So if you have painted a work and it is your painting, but someone has copied it and has publicly exhibited your painting and is making money out of it, then it is infringement. And if it is infringement copies are imported from other countries into India for selling or for any other commercial purpose, then that is also copyright infringement. What are the actions against copyright infringement? It can be civil and criminal remedies according to Copyright Act. It can be injunctions or imprisonment or fining. And also it can be compensatory damages, which you will have to pay to the original owner of the copyrighted work. But there are few exceptions to the infringement. The one which I have already told you, which is freedom of panorama, which is available to you for the buildings that is situated in public. That is one thing. The other thing is for private and personal use. So if you are using a book for your private and personal use, and you are not gaining any money out of it, then it is not infringement. For example, for teaching purpose, you are taking copies of the book, and you are not earning any money, but it is purely for your private and personal use, then it is not infringement. Or for criticizing or reviewing that work, then it is not infringement. Or it can also be for reporting current events or current affairs, then all these things, it will not be an infringement. So these are the exceptions to the copyright infringement. Moving on, as I said earlier, you get your copyright automatically. You need not register your copyright, but then we have Copyright Office in India, which is in Delhi. But still you can go register your copyright. For you have that proof or an evidence, you have that upper hand over the other, saying that this work is copyrighted, and this can be done through application filed with the Copyright Act. It can be done online, and the only thing is that the work should be first published in India, as in it should be created first in India, or means it needs to be an original work, or any other convention country. Convention country is Berne Convention, Phonograph Convention, and Universal Copyright Convention, which talks about copyright. So any work that you have created in a country who is a member to these conventions, you can register your copyright in India. And that's a flow chart here, where you will see how you can register your copyright. You'll have to file the application, and then there is a 30-day mandatory period. But if there are no objections filed, you will get your copyright within other 30 days. But your application is rejected or any objection is filed, then the both parties have the right to be heard, and then the Copyright Office comes to a conclusion whether the registration has to be done or not. So that's how copyright registration flow or copyright registration works. So that was my take or my send on copyright, a brief idea on copyright. I hope you would have got some idea now. Any doubts?
Dear participants, please unmute yourself and ask your doubts or comments.
So no questions, I think. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, I think there are no questions. I hope this session was useful to you, and you would have by now got some idea about what copyright is. I have made it it was a very simple presentation, but then if you go to Copyright Act, you get to understand the intricacies of copyright law. If anyone still has questions, you can ask me.
Ma'am, though the copyright laws are very complicated, I think you have made it very easy for us to understand through your simple presentation.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear that.
Shall we wind up the session, ma'am?
Yes, we can.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you for your time and thank you for the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. All the best.
Thank you, ma'am.